This episode was sponsored by Trafford Watch Co. and the new Touring GMT. The latest from the Austin-based watchmakers is inspired by the relentless spirit of musicians and their fans. The Touring GMT has independent hour and GMT hands so you can seamlessly track the time in your next venue and back at home. Available in 3 colorways inspired by American music venues. Check out the Touring GMT at TraffordWatchCo.com. That's TraffordWatchCo.com.
Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the managing editor at Worn and Wound. We've got a full house today. Really fun episode. This is an old-fashioned new release rundown episode because it's been a while since we've done one of these, and we've got a whole bunch of new watches to talk about. Imagine that. So let's get right to introductions. We've got Kat Shoulders joining us from Nashville, Tennessee. Kat, how's it going?
Great. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on. We've also got Zach Weiss coming to us from Brooklyn. Zach, it's an end of the week, first day of November. How are things looking for you?
Pretty good. Can I make one request that when we do these intros that we get some like canned applause for ourselves? You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's good.
Just a little like,
Note to
that's
AJ,
where I'm at emotionally right now.
Insert insert applause.
I need electronic
rounding out
support.
Yeah, no, we could definitely use some. Rounding out our panel today, we've got Devin Pennypacker, who we'll pull some video from this. It's the day after Halloween, but he's still in costume as Steve Zissou. Devin, welcome.
Yes.
Great,
Thank you.
Great to have you with us.
Yeah, fully committed to the bit. I did not get a chance to go out trick-or-treating this year, shocker. So I decided to instead don my uniform for all of my meetings that I have had since yesterday. So yeah, I'm here for it.
I appreciate it. It'll be hard to take your opinions on these new releases completely seriously, but
that was the plan. Yeah,
that's fine. We'll get into wrist checks too. Devin, we'll keep it with you. What are you wearing today?
Ooh, okay. So I actually just picked up a watch I've been hunting for a long time. Actually, 2 watches. One that really sucks and one that's awesome. One that I hate is the new Fitbit Versa 3. This thing is terrible. But I'll get into that in another piece later down the road.
Okay.
On my other wrist, though, is a Gen 1 Omega Planet Ocean. This is the 2200.50 from Casino Royale. One that I've been hunting for a long time, and I finally have on the wrist. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Very nice. Congratulations. That's a really cool piece.
Thank you.
I had a Seamaster Planet Ocean a while back, and love that watch. It's like the early generation Planet Oceans have a real charm to them. So that's fantastic.
They wear so much better than the modern ones, in my opinion. So I'm really happy with this on. Even at 45.5 millimeters, it still wears well.
Very nice, very nice. Kat, how about you? What are you wearing today?
I'm wearing my Louis Erard Alain Silverstein Smile Day with the little aperture that has emojis in it, which is cute and fun.
Very nice. What emoji is it? Is it on
I don't even
today?
Know. Today it's like kind of on the meh face, like don't really care about anything.
This podcast, we're recording it on November 1st, but it will air the morning after the presidential election. So just, something to keep in mind as we're thinking about Kat's emoji dial. So, yeah. Just going to leave that there. Zach, what are you wearing today?
I have on my Lango 101.029.
Very nice. That's a pretty good watch. Longer one. Not bad.
It's fine.
Suck.
Yeah.
Doesn't suck.
It's a meh emoji.
Yeah.
That's
I'm wearing
I'm like
meh.
Yeah. I'm wearing my a new pickup that I picked up at the Wind Up Watch Fair recently, the Christopher Ward C1 Belcanto in Dragonfly Blue. Very controversial watch, apparently.
Really?
Well, I mean, the new one was released. We'll get to that. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But all sorts of commentary on this watch in the far corners.
I love the name of that one, Dragonfly Blue. Really like that a lot.
Maybe that'll come up as
cool.
we are discussing new releases.
Maybe.
Yeah. Let's get started. I think the the big release that hit earlier this week as we record that we have to talk about first is the new Tudor FXD GMT Zulu Time. I think that's the full title of this watch. We wrote about this watch the morning it dropped. This is something Tudor does. They tease a new release for like 24 hours or so, and then they send a press release out like in the middle of the night, East Coast time, and we're always scrambling to pull it together and to kind of like get our facts straight. But we got this one up, early the morning that it landed. What do you guys think of this watch? This is obviously a much anticipated release. People have been asking for a Pelagos GMT for a very long time. Zach, let's start with you. What were your initial thoughts on seeing this watch?
So in the lead up, the like 24 hours of joke predicting about what the watch might be, as one does with Tudor. Also knowing that their teases can be very misleading. Like there've been times in the past where they've straight up just like, I remember one time they showed like a triangle and it kind of like hinted at the 79090, and then it was like, I don't remember what they released then, but it was nothing to do with that. So I was joking, well, if it's like a titanium GMT, I'm going to be in trouble. So that's sort of like what I would like from the brand. And then bada boom, titanium GMT. And my first impression was, in my like first blush saw it was, I really like it. Just like, I like the aggressiveness of it. I like the Pelagos format in general. The FXD format a little less than the normal Pelagos formats, I would say. But then as the details set in, I still like it, but I've acknowledged it is not for me, and that is all right. You don't do it. No. I know I like the way it looks. The FXD aspect so for me, why I like a GMT and I like the Black Bay Pro it's a great travel watch, obviously, and it was for me when I travel, one of those places I go, Switzerland, so I like it to be able to be like dressed up a little bit for those situations. And the FXD being only on nylon strap or pass-through strap, you could probably make something custom, but ignoring that like just limits it too much for me. And that's sort of always been my issue with the FXD. It's just like I don't like being told I can only wear a bracelet for integrated watches, and I don't want to be told I can only wear a pass-through strap. So, but I think it's still pretty cool overall.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Kat, how about you? What were your initial thoughts on this watch? None of us have seen it yet. I should say, as we record, we will get a sample in.
Maybe all of our opinions will change.
Yeah,
that is entirely possible. I would not be surprised.
For sure.
I mean, every time I put an FXD on, I'm like, oof. It's nice.
I like it. I agree with a lot of what Zach said. I don't like that you're limited to pass through straps with the FXD. But I love the Pelagos line. I think the Pelagos has a great bracelet and an incredible clasp design as well. And so, I would love to see this in a version of sort of like a regular Pelagos. But I don't love I don't want to call it Fotina. I don't think it is here necessarily, but the sort of cream looking indices and numerals on the bezel. I would have preferred like white, like the starch white with orange hand. I think that would have looked better in my opinion, but I kind of get what they're going for. They're going for that sort of vintage look here. It's just not for me, but I'm excited that this is here because I think that it's certainly going to open the door for more iterations for sure from Tudor.
Yeah, I think you're right. With other FXDs, we've seen, like an initial release and then, variations on that theme kind of, come to pass over time. And obviously this is the movement that was used in the Black Bay Pro. It's been Metas certified. So it's, technically has a different model number, but
Metas GMT.
Yeah. So, obviously this is a movement that they use throughout their catalog now. And, so we can see this pop up in some other Pelagos, whether it be an FXD or like a regular Pelagos. Who knows? Devin, I wanted to ask you about this release and also kind of open up the discussion to like, what do you think specifically of the military like treatment of this? This is a Marine Nationale piece similar to the very first FXD. It like all the teasers had, like showed like Marine Nationale personnel and helicopters and so this is kind of like being positioned as a military watch worn by military personnel. What are your thoughts on that and the watch in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think the watch is cool. It's not for me. I don't like it necessarily as far as the styling goes. I don't like the Fotina. There's something about the coloring that just doesn't hit right with me, but I do actually like the FXD platform, having almost bought the black FXD the second I put it on my wrist. One other thing I want to point out to you, there is a leather strap. I'm having a hard time remembering the name of it, but it actually has like a fold over system on the lug. Mm-hmm. So you can actually wrap a leather strap around those fixed lugs if you wanted to wear a two-piece strap, which is kind of neat. It opens it up so you're not, married to a NATO. That being said, I don't have any military background. I don't have military in my family. So the military tie is something that I know is like a drum that a lot of companies beat to try and, build up this hardcore tool aspect around the watch. But for me, it just kind of falls a little flat. And it's done so much now that I think I'm getting a little fatigued on that whole storyline. I understand the ties. I understand the development. But as we talk about all the time, people who are in the military, they're wearing G-Shocks. They might be wearing a Tudor. There might be a special forces unit wearing Tudors out there, but most people aren't. And if they do own a Tudor, that's not the one that they're putting on when they get deployed. So it's a little odd for me to see that over and over and over again.
The strap has what I believe is a military nationale like insignia on it, and like to me that just seems. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable like wearing a watch with the,
we're also not French.
I'm not French. So, it just kind of seems a little strange to me. I'm kind of with you guys. I feel like we're all sort of, at best kind of ambivalent about this watch. I'm not a huge FXD fan in general. I don't love NATO straps, pass-through straps. So like that alone kind of makes these watches a non-starter for me. I also am just not a fan of the colorway, like whether you call it Fotina or just beige lume. I just don't think it quite works on this watch. But I do look forward to seeing what other kinds of like GMT Pelagos is Pelagai. It's the plural of Pelagos. I have no idea. Maybe this opens the floodgates and there are more kind of interesting Pelagos GMTs to come.
I will say, like, one thing I do think it's a little weird, the way this one is positioned, because obviously the original FXD had that story about the skin divers and the specific sort of mission. I don't know what you call it. The way they used that, where they would swim,
the navigational kind of.
Yeah, the navigation. It was a cool conceptual story that kind of built out the exact why that watch worked the way it worked, because that had a countdown bezel and stuff on it.
Yep.
And so it was really built in. And then you had like a normal FXD, which had no military ties, which made sense. They used the format and they just made it like mainline. Then you had forged carbon ones, which were Red Bull, Lingy, like they had a new theme to it and that theme sort of worked. And then the biking one. So all these themes sort of fit certain elements of the watch, other than the neutral one just being sort of neutral. And now this one goes back to the military, but it's just, there's nothing new about the concept. Like I almost think that, it's another thing. The 24-hour bezel, it's when it's stationary is useful for the 24-hour hand, but it is a rotating bezel, and like using 3 times. It just gets kind of like, I personally don't like that as like using that. Actually, thing I like about the Black Bay Pro is that it's a fixed bezel, but I feel like it would have needed a more functional bezel for something that they're doing, right? Like why? Yeah. Maybe that's stupid. Maybe there's nothing else you can do with it, but like maybe it goes back to the countdown bezel or something, or has like a multi, indexed bezel. And then that brings me to this sort of Fotina, which I don't know if I personally would call Fotina on this, though they do obviously have the choice of their clean white, and then they have this beige. So it's not like it's their only lume color. So it makes it feel like Fotina, which then it's like, well, what's that about now? And it feels like it's honestly kind of like, the more you kind of spin this stuff up to me, the more sort of convoluted it is, and more it gets away from the Marine Nationale aspect of it, which I can see a lot of people buying into, and then this sort of defeating it. It was just a stylized watch. I had no Marine Nationale. I just, whatever. then it's just, I would just be more in tune to the aesthetics of it. And like the warm loom does go with orange. So it's like, so I don't know.
Well, you brought up the Red Bull Racing watch, though, the chronograph. And I called out the military aspect of this watch being something that doesn't resonate with me. The Alinghi Racing Team, I do sail, I watch sailing. I can tell you, I raced against a Tudor-sponsored trimaran down in the Caribbean. None of them were wearing Tudor chronographs. And if they were, at no point could they have ever reached up and actually done them, because those guys are soaking wet, strapped in, and grinding constantly on a winch. So... these ties, these romantic stories that they used to sell the watches don't always actually pull through in real life.
Imagine that. Wow.
Yeah. Shocker.
Can that be the soundbite of this episode? Grinding on a winch or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. I wanted to just like jump back to something you said, Zach, about the functionality here, because that also kind of like jumped out to me, because I was skeptical when the original FXD Marine Nationale came out, about like I never fully bought into the idea that there are like Marine Nationale divers like using these watches to navigate. Like it's a cool story, but like it just didn't make a lot of sense to me that that's happening like on a day-to-day basis. Maybe it is. Maybe if anyone can prove me wrong, I welcome it. Please feel free. But seems like a marketing story meant to sell watches, which is fine, and that happens all the time. What they're really leaning on with this release is the Zulu time like aspect of it, which is the like UTC time, which is important for pilots. But that's not like unique to this one. Like that's like many GMTs. That's sort of like the original kind of like impetus for like designing a GMT watch. It's, that sort of 24-hour rotating bezel functionality is as old as these watches themselves. So just sort of like it would have been cool, maybe a little bit cooler if they had come up with some kind of weird story for like functionality beyond just like it's a pilot's watch. So yeah, I don't know.
Also,
we can move on.
They have helicopters. Are helicopters like? I mean, helicopters not quite like long distance. Okay, I'm gonna stop thinking about this. I also don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know. I don't know from helicopters.
The teasers all showed men and also women, to be fair, in helicopters.
Helicopters.
So yeah, it's the FXD GMT helicopter watch. You guys know Christopher Nolan's working on a helicopter movie? You hear about that?
I heard. Yeah, I heard. Exciting.
But like a rethinking of Blue Thunder is the rumor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wild stuff.
It's called Tropic Thunder.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to find a good transition to the next piece. So someone someone else. We have a list. Who wants to go next and pick a watch from the master list of new releases here?
Let's look here.
We need like I think we should thing that spins on the...
Yeah, we should have a little like Wheel of Fortune here.
I think we should just go right into the Bel Canto.
You want to talk about the Bel Canto Classic?
Yeah, we should. We should just jump right into it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I wrote a hands-on review of this watch that went live the day it launched, so I can start. It's the Bel Canto Classic is kind of like the first like rethinking of the Bel Canto since the Bel Canto was launched.
And they're calling it like Act 2. Right?
Yeah, I think that's I've seen that in the marketing. So it's basically it's a Bel Canto, same 41 millimeter titanium case, same movement with the sonnerie en passage chiming mechanism, but this one has a laser etched guilloche platine. So like that sheet kind of like under the small offset dial, instead of being a solid color or like a sunray finish, now has a pretty elaborate striking guilloche pattern. And they've also made some changes to the offset dial itself, with Roman numerals instead of like simple kind of loomed batons. And the crystal's different. It's now a sapphire box crystal. So they call it the Classic. It has some more sort of like vintage inspired kind of design cues. It's very, very nice. Like I prefer the kind of aesthetic of the original Bel Canto. Like I'm wearing one on my wrist. Like I'm very, happy to own one in the kind of like original style. But I think it's cool that they've, made some little adjustments and are offering something different. Zach, you're a fellow Belcanto owner. What are your thoughts on the classic?
Yeah, so I had a brief moment of hands-on when it was in the office before it went off to you. So I did get to like check it out for a bit. And yeah, it's funny. It's like I understand what they were going for, certainly, and I actually more a fan of sort of like neoclassical watch design elements these days than I certainly used to be. So I like seeing them in use, and that's particularly, I think, really on the offset, dial with the rotating Roman numerals and the like very Breguet-esque like points around that. The texture is fantastic. It's like, and especially, I don't know too much about the limits and things of the laser etching process, but there's been a lot of talk recently about guilloche and different methods of doing it, from stamping to CNC, Rose engine, obviously. And this laser etching, what I thought was really cool is that it is so dimensional. So like, I think at some point in my mind, like laser etching was really a flat sort of thing, and it's just come a long way since then. And, the fact that they can get, it's three-dimensional. There's literally crests and valleys in there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's really getting that effect of a tool doing that. And something that was interesting about that is like, from a manufacturing standpoint, was that with a CNC machine, that still requires somebody to operate it and, kind of monitor it and do other things, remove the plates, clean them up, et cetera. I think the laser, they can actually run a lot longer. And even though it takes like several hours per dial, it's something they can do for 24 hours. So, I think that that's actually a really interesting side of the whole Belcanto story, is that they're doing this thing that is very elaborate. And they're trying to do it on like a somewhat mass. They're making thousands of them a year. That's a mass, manufacturing scale, but it requires a lot of things that are not mass manufacturable. So they have to find kind of an in-between. So there's a lot of smart watchmaking at play there. I will say though, on just a straight up like aesthetic level, I do prefer the original one as well. And I obviously have had a lot of time to bond with mine, and it's like one of my favorite watches I've ever owned. And, I have to put that into like a 25-minute long video, however long that thing was. But like my real critiques of it were, I thought the hands really disappeared on this one, whereas the hands on the original have loom on them. They stand out a little. Particularly the hour hand sort of like floats on, like it's not over the ring. So that just was immediately stuck out to me. And the box crystal, I didn't really think added anything except for height. Mm. The case is still very modern, so I don't think the box crystal just really fit there personally. That's my two cents. How about you? Sorry,
Devin, Kat, how about you guys? Do you have any thoughts on the new Belcanto?
I haven't seen this one in person. I love it. This might be like, if I were to go buy a Belcanto, like this iteration would be what I would go for. I love the silver. I forgot what they call Argento, I think is what they call. It's absolutely beautiful and has the blued hands on that one, which I really like. For the hour and minute, which I think adds the legibility a little bit more. There's so much dimension. The dial is so dynamic. I love it. Yeah. I like the box crystal too. For no other reason, just like aesthetic purposes. I think like from viewing it like on the side, or like on your wrist, it's sometimes like you like weird angles of the watch on your own wrist. And I think like I would like that. I would like how it sort of distorts the dial a little bit looking at it from different angles. But yeah, this is a home run for me. I'm excited for other acts that Christopher Ward might do with the Belcanto. This is a good second version, I think, to have out there for sure, and offers something like a little bit different, I think, from the first.
Yeah. Devin, how about you? What do you think?
No, I agree. I think the silver dial is probably the one that stood out the most to me too, although legibility is definitely a bit of an issue on these models. I imagine too, depending on how they play in the light, you're probably going to run into a lot of glare, messing with the crystal, messing with the dial surface. Overall, I think it's awesome. I think it's a really cool thing for Christopher Ward to do. And the fact that we got, the Trident turned into the Lumineer and the Belcanto turned into the Belcanto Classic. And they took two very popular watches from their lineup and just took them to that next level. And I think that's really cool to see a company do, because how often do we see companies that they don't really iterate on their watches? They just come out with something brand new, or they add a bracelet and call it something brand new. Whereas Christopher Ward really took the time to refine these and make them something special and make it feel like they're elevating their entire lineup and offering you just so much value for what they're asking, which is pretty cool to see too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, I've been wearing my Bel Canto like pretty much nonstop since I picked it up at Wind Up a few weeks ago. And it just like, it really does feel like a lot of watch for, you know, like $4,000 or, you know, whatever, it costs. It's just like, it's so, like, to me, it just feels so different. And it just has like a very, like the goals of the watch are so different than like so many other watches that I own. It really kind of like makes you think about like how watches are conceived and made. And, we'll link to Zach's video. I think, Zach, you said it incredibly well in the long video that you made about your experience living with it for so long. But that all just kind of like immediately sort of like rings true to me, even after a short time of owning it. It's a pretty special watch.
I'm looking at the colors now just quickly, and like, because we only had the green and I honestly didn't look too closely at the other ones, just assuming everything is the same. That's how we do it. The blue hands and blue beak are really nice on the silver. And then the gold one has black. So I think both of those would get around that hour hand legibility issue I was talking about.
They upgraded the clasp as well too, right? Now we have that deployant clasp.
I didn't go for the bracelet on mine, so I never.
Yeah, I believe they have the new micro adjustment on the clasp. I could be wrong. We'll double check that.
Does it come with the? I'm trying to figure out if it comes with the bracelet or if it's an option to buy it.
So you can get it. You can get all of them on a bracelet, but they have new straps for the Bel Canto Classic that have a more dramatic taper. So that's another small change. Is the leather straps are a little bit different.
Gotcha. Yeah, so these are on pre-order. It looks like. Oh no, you can actually buy these. Add to back. Well, no, pre-order.
I think there's like a 2-month wait.
Okay.
Which is also kind of like another, bit of news is that like they've, they're not available like on demand quite yet, but it's a shorter window than we've seen previously. So it's Zach's point about.
Have they discontinued then the other ones? Because right now, I mean, their website isn't the greatest website on earth. I've always found it a little difficult to navigate. Sorry, guys. If they're listening. But it looks like now if you just go to, there's like only Bel Canto Classic is coming up. You go to Bel Canto and then you go shop now. And I don't see the original at all anymore.
So there's two tabs, Zach. If you go to watches, there's Bel Canto new and then Bel Canto like 2 over from it. So they like divide them up in a weird way.
Of course there is. Sorry about okay, there we go. Yeah. Great navigation on that.
Yeah,
How dare you dig their design.
It is kind of strange. It's something I struggled with in writing about the watches. Like they call this new watch the Classic, which just is a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, but on that new tab, you go there and you see the C1 Bel Canto and you hit shop now, you go to the Bel Canto Classic. Not. So at this moment, whether or not they know this or not, you can't buy the other one.
Interesting. My understanding was that this one would exist alongside the original, but I
mean, I found links to it only through the Classics page, though. At the very bottom, they had the regular C1 Bel Canto at the bottom that you can still pre-order and buy. It looks like, but
if you go to a shop,
I only navigated it through the Classic pages. That was like at the bottom is like recommended. But
anyway,
we
should have a podcast where we rate websites,
or just kind of like navigate through them and describe what we're seeing. I think it's
and we either sound like old idiots, like I can't find the page.
Yeah, seriously.
Thank you again to our sponsor, Trafford Watch Co., with their new Touring GMT. Inspired by the resilience and energy of the modern touring band, the watch is a tribute to the connections we make through music. Their latest release measures in at 39mm in diameter in a 316L stainless steel case, including both a soft Italian leather 20mm strap and Perlon pass-through style. The watch offers 10 ATM or 100 meters of water resistance, meaning it is ready to rock as hard as you are. An automatic Miyota 9075 movement inside maintains a power reserve of 42 hours. The Touring GMT comes in 3 colorways, each inspired by famous music venues in the United States. Los Angeles' Troubadour venue is reflected in a white dial with a 2-tone green AM/PM indicator ring for the yellow GMT pointer. The Bluebird in Nashville brings a deep blue dial with yellow and orange used smartly for numbers and hands. Finally, Austin's own Saxton Pub, inspired by a black dial with white indices and black and white chapter ring on the outside to contrast the teal hands and orange GMT pointer. Retailing for $8.99, check out the Touring GMT at TraffordWatchco.com. That's TraffordWatchco.com.
Let's move on to another new release. One of you guys put the I didn't add this to the list, which shows you my bias perhaps, but one of you put the first Omega in space, the new first Omega in space Speedmaster on this list. Was that you, Kat, or Devin? One of you guys add that?
That would be I.
That was Devin.
Devin, take us through the new first Omega in space Speedmaster.
Well, so I actually put this on here specifically to get Zach to chime in about it, because I know that you might have been, having a few moments of hands-on with it. So if you could just, give us a hot take.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, you're the only one that's seen this
Sure.
in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I went to the new Omega boutique in Soho. They invited some press out there to look at the boutique itself and some new watches. And they actually didn't have the first Omega in space Speedy out. And I was sitting there, I was like, what am I here for? And then I was like, excuse me, may I see this one watch I want? And then they brought it out and showed it to me. And first blush, very attractive watch, really nicely sized. It'd been a while since I'd seen the previous generation first Omega in space, but I always had felt that one seemed a little chunky to me, and the milky sapphire halo thing was always something that personally irked me. I know it irks other people, so other people don't care, but you have this weird white line surrounding the dial on those, just because of, I guess, how the sapphire builds up on itself. It's interesting, and it didn't have any of that, so it felt really, really refined. The blue-gray color is beautiful, fit well, but that lume is just off. It is, you talk about Fotina. If you think that Tudor has Fotina, this is many levels more Fotina than that. It is it's very rusty, pumpkin. Crusty orange. Yeah, pumpkin spice, I think it might have been called. Yeah, and I honestly couldn't kind of get past that when I was looking at it. It really distracted me from the other elements of the watch, because it's a funny thing. It's like, I don't know. It's like, why throw? You don't need to pretend with a Speedmaster. That's why that's what's so good about the Speedmaster, right? It's like, it's got the heritage, it's got the design, it's got the stories. This one has a sub story that's still really good about, the first circumnavigation of the globe, whatever, 6 times by Wally Schirra. Is it Wally Schirra? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and it's also amazing. Why add something fake in there? I just don't get it. And whatever. I think a lot of people won't care. I don't know, the Fotina thing, though, people get up in arms about when they see, like, whatever. I could probably do this for an hour, talk about what should count as Fotina or not. I will put this flag in the ground. C3 lume is not Fotina. All right, I've said it. C3, for those of us who design watches, is the brightest glowing lume because of how your eyes perceive green, and it has a slightly kind of yellowish green tint. It's not pure white on the dial. That is not Fotina. That is great lume. Anyway, this is Fotina. I'm sorry. I got angry. Distracted myself. But
that's okay. This is a safe space on the podcast.
People really go ham on the Fotina argument, like to the point where anything that's not crisp white is Fotina, and that's bullshit. This is Fotina.
No, this is absolutely Fotina. They are certainly trying to make it look like it is aged. I had a Speedmaster reduced for a while back in the day that had this pumpkin style lume because it had aged. It was from like the early 90s and like had naturally aged to that color. And, I think that's something to be proud of when you own a watch that has like gone through that history and time. I don't want to buy something that's like brand new that has it. Like I want to, if it gets like this over the years, then that's a different story. But it is very weird and silly to me that I don't know. I guess it's the same thing with cars. Like people buy things that look old that aren't. But to me, like that's like, I don't know. It's the aging process of it that gets it that color, and so that's kind of a weird thing. Zach's cat's popping his head down to the camera. And it's just like it's a really weird concept. Like you're already taking design elements that are old. That can be the one thing that we can like leave alone and let it age naturally over time. You wouldn't put rust on a car that you would buy brand new. And I think like that's kind of the similar thing to me with watches. Like it's something that happens over time, and it's just weird to see on a brand new piece.
Yeah.
Or you go the whole way. Like I forgot what they were called, but Laco at least used to do those incredibly heavily patinaed watches where they would acid bath them. They would hit them with hammers. But they would make sure they were still like had structural integrity, which was really cool. But they would do everything to make it look like this thing was found on the bottom of the ocean from 60 years ago. And it's like you were really dedicated to that. Here, everything is brand new and glossy. It's got a sapphire crystal on it, but the lume.
I don't like it.
What do you think of the dial, Zach? This one has like a blue, very dark blue dial, I think.
It's beautiful.
Which honestly, like, doesn't really register in like the press photos and renders they sent out. Like, it does it like show up as like, does it register as blue in person? Like, is it a nice color?
Yeah, I mean, I recall it. This is a pretty quick time with it, but it definitely was a blue. It's like a blue gray though. It's a little desaturated. Like, it's not. But I didn't see in sunlight. It could come out a little bit brighter. But I found the color really appealing. I know that refers to these sort of mythical, whatever handful of dials that came out sort of at a different color. Seems to be some kind of sort of iffy history about those things. But I guess, but it distinguishes it from the other ones. I don't dislike that aspect to it. I think they should probably also make a straight black dial version of this because the case and everything is nailed. Maybe they'll do that and get rid of the Fotina. I'm sure they're listening.
Yeah. Devin, where do you come down on the on the Fotina argument just in general and for this watch specifically?
I hate it. I think this watch is great looking apart from that. I think that the dial is really beautiful. I think that the way the kind of indices and the hour hands and the sub-seconds, like everything just is crisp. And then you have this aged lume, which doesn't really match the whole ethos of the watch in general. The whole first Omega in space thing too, like it's not a story again that resonates with me. I'm kind of tired of banging the drum over and over and over again.
You're a man of the seas, not
space. And this is a watch built for cars. So like the whole thing just doesn't make any sense for me. But also too, to drop around the same time that we got a new moon swatch was kind of awesome. You have these two opposite ends of the entire market fighting each other for, did we love it? Do we hate it? And so it was just, it was a fun time on the internet for a little bit. I did enjoy people arguing about how this new like Fotina lume makes it a little bit crisper at night for the glow, which makes that the 12-hour marker, which I'll politically call it a nose marker, although we all know what it actually looks like. It's a bit more defined at night.
I think nose is more accurate. Whatever. That's interesting. Yeah, I did not get to see. I didn't see this in a dark room. I didn't see it glow. I'll go back to my C3 comments, though. If you want good glow, go to C3.
Perfect.
Zach, I think that cues you up for some moon swatch talk.
That was the goal.
Listen, I didn't put the moon swatch on this list for a reason because I just don't want to. I don't care to discuss it. Moon swatch and a new Tudor. It like within 24 hours of each other. Wow. That's just like clickbait madness if you choose to go down that route.
But it isn't like the moon swatch got so much less play than it used to.
It really did. And I feel like we might be on the
this actually had this had a reason to talk about, though, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, which I'll be totally honest, I did not dig into this at all. Like the new complicate. Like I know nothing about the Moonswatch. I can't comment on it because I'm allergic to them at this point. But I will say, I put a snarky comment about the Moonswatch on my Instagram stories, and I got so many like positive reactions from industry people who I will not name. You all,
Wow.
I'll leave you anonymous. But I got so many. Yeah, so many people seem to agree with me that we we're just a little tired. We have got some Moonswatch fatigue. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you also have Moonswatch fatigue, just know you're not alone. And others share your perspective. Let's move on to a watch that everyone seems to love, the Patek Cubitus. This is another one. This is a huge release. Over the last couple of weeks, Patek Philippe hasn't released a new collection in decades. I believe what was the last one? Not the. It would have been the. Someone tell me what the most recent Patek collection was. The name's not coming to me, but I will. I'll probably think of it like when we're on to like the next watch. But anyway, brand new collection, big deal. They had a big event to release it in Munich, Germany, I believe, and it's been fairly controversial. You guys just kind of like want to like do a round robin, go around and just like give a thumbs up or thumbs down on the Cubitus. Kat's got her thumbs down.
You have to say Devin, it though, yeah.
Yeah.
The thumbs down. Yeah. Sorry, no one can actually see me.
I mean, it's horrible, but I love it because it's horrible.
No,
if that makes any sense.
No.
I know it's ridiculous.
So bad.
It's a monster, but like also monsters can be beautiful.
Debatable.
Zach, your thoughts on the Cubitus?
You do that? It's like a side
middle. He's doing the
yeah. I think when the masses despise something so much, I'm more inclined to like it a little bit. Like most other people who have judged it, I have not seen the watch in person. I have no intention on going to go see it and rushing out the door to a Patek store to try this thing on. But it pissed a lot of people off, which I find. And people the reaction. It's just like, get over yourselves. Seriously, get over yourselves.
It was so fun.
You know nothing about it. You don't know Patek. You're not like whatever. It's just so ridiculous. Like it's whatever. It's hilarious to me. It looks kind of rough, but hey, look. According to them, according to the page I was going to look it up on Worn and Wound, but it turns out we don't have an article on this yet. It's unmistakable elegance. So, I mean, would they say that if it wasn't true? I mean, it's got to be true. This is Patek. It's got to be true.
They don't lie. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just want to like it because everyone else hates it. I will, but it's like, it's an absurd thing from an absurd brand for absurd people. Who cares?
Yeah.
I really don't have a strong take on this watch at all. I'm not a huge Patek guy. Like, I don't aspire to own a Patek Philippe. I never really have. Particularly their sporty watches are not appealing to me. Yeah. And the Aquanaut, by the way, is the collection I was thinking of. That was the most recent Patek Philippe collection.
I was going to say that but I'm so naive to the brand that I didn't want to be wrong. So I didn't.
Yeah. So they, so the last two collections they've released have been sporty watches, if you want to look at it that way. So that kind of, maybe that tells you something about the movement of this very old brand over, decades. Anyway, I'm not offended by the aesthetic of this watch. I agree with you, Zach. I think clocking the reactions of people has been, part of the fun of this release. And also the comments made by Terry Stern, who runs the ship at Patek, kind of saying I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but basically responding to the negative comments saying you'll never own a Patek anyway, so your opinion doesn't matter. Just really villain origin story stuff, from Terry Stern.
No, it's
That's how
I don't know
over.
if I love or loathe that he said that, but it's just like it just leaned right into the image.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we are so above you. It's the Mad Men, like I don't even think about you, kind of a thing. You know.
Yeah. It just sort of like makes me that the Mad Men meme definitely comes into play here. It just makes me think that like who wants to buy into that? You know, like if you're like a youngish collector with like the money to burn on, you know, like a $40,000 luxury sports watch, like why choose to spend it with the guy who wants to just like exclude people, you know, like even beyond like the prohibitive price tag. I think it matters, like kind of like where you spend your money. Like I try to like, you know, be thoughtful about that. And I like to support, you know, like brands and people in the watch community that I like. And like it's hard to wrap my head around someone like, you know, hearing that and then still deciding, yes, like I need to buy into this brand now.
Yeah, I think it's still the exclusivity. Like, I think people they're always going to want to be a part of that, you know, good or bad. Which is
such a funny, I want to be a part of the exclusivity. Include me in your exclusivity.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Me, please.
I also want to.
I mean, I will say like, there, you know, I'm kind of like joking, like it's so, in the context of these new watches, the modern collector and whatever, it's kind of like fits perfectly. But obviously there's a massive back catalog of incredible watches. And, you know, like, there are vintage Pateks that I, you know, wouldn't mind owning at some point in my life. I don't think I will, but actually at Wind Up Watch Fair, Analog Shift had a 3940 yellow gold that was being worn by one of the gentlemen from the company, but you know, he was letting people try it on. It wasn't his watch. It was just, I think we're keeping it from getting too into rotation, kind of a thing. It is perfect. It is like the perfect perpetual calendar. In every shape. It's just amazing. But I don't want to be a part of that club. Like I like that watch, but I don't want to be a part of that club, that other part of the club, you know, with it.
It is amazing though, at 45 millimeters, that it is still 30 meters of water resistance. It's a pretty remarkable way to not be able to get anything out of a 45 millimeter case.
Would you take this watch sailing? Car. Would you go?
No. But this is a vintage muscle car where you can put a giant engine inside of it and still only get 200 horsepower, but it looks fun and it looks cool and it's aggressive.
Definitely aggressive.
Yeah, it's aggressive.
I mean, for some people, myself included, a sports watch is for watching sports, which I actually don't do. So that don't include me in that. But you know what I mean? That makes sense. You don't participate. I bet on things.
I'm glad we got to talk about the Patek Hubitus on the Warner Wound podcast. Mission accomplished on that front. Thank you guys for indulging me. I see a watch on the list that I want to talk about because I saw it in Geneva a few months ago. Geneva Watches. It's the Ming 3702 Minimalist. Zach, we were talking about Lume earlier in the context of the Omega. First Omega in space, which is what I like to call it. This watch from Ming, according to them, is the first watch with white emitting lume, which is, you know, something that like you don't necessarily like think about necessarily. Like you think like we've all seen like white lume that you know glows, you know, like green or light green or you know some other color, but this watch actually glows white, and it's sort of like a disconcerting thing when you actually like see it. And Ming gave me like a demonstration of it. I thought this watch was really cool. It's the first watch that's kind of made under like the Swiss arm of the company that they set up, but it doesn't have a Swiss made designation because of like the weird rules around like what gets a Swiss made designation. Ming's headquartered in is it Malaysia where they're
Malaysia,
based? Yeah. So like all of the like, you know, design and concepting of these watches happens there, and a certain amount of the assembly happens in Switzerland, and it's complicated, but that's also like part
it has
of the
to be
story
designed and engineered in Switzerland technically to get the Swiss made, which it's actually it's interesting. I wonder how a lot of brands achieve that, or if they're just, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so like
I like their honesty here, though.
Me too. And that's one of the things that's like, to me, like kind of appealing about this watch. And it to me represents like a new chapter in the brand's history, making watches with this, like the Swiss entity of the company, but they can't put Swiss made on the dial. They're using, they have like a Swiss arm just for like sourcing components and being able to like work more closely with, with their, partner companies who supply them with everything they need to make these watches. The other thing about this watch I think is interesting is they made them available like on the day of, which is something I've been
I didn't know that.
Critical of Ming about in the past. They launch these watches and you put down a deposit and you end up like waiting a year or so for these watches. They basically kind of like an extended sort of like Kickstarter model, which I'm not a fan of. These watches, at least the first batch of them, were available on the day they went live. I just want to say, like, I think that's a great move from Ming. And like the watch is cool,
and they're not limited
too. Like,
it's
not limited. It's a permanent part of the collection. I imagine like they'll sell out probably of whatever batch they made of this first run, but the idea is to keep this one in the collection permanently. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the Ming 3702 if you have any. I thought it was a pretty cool piece when I saw it a few months ago. But did you guys have a chance to take a look at this at all?
Yeah, I just missed this release from my radar, but looking at it, it's very interesting, and I'm curious if they are truly the only ones that have made this white. It's like it glows white. It's not tinted as they say. So yeah, that'd be something cool to kind of dig into, because I have seen a white glowing lume before, but I guess this is a new process for them. And it's a true luminous material that is white, polar white, as they call it. Yeah. It looks really cool. I like the minimalist look. Yeah, I dig it. I like it.
Yeah. Zach, what are your thoughts on the new Ming? You've been covering Ming. As a company, we've been covering Ming from the beginning. We've had them on the podcast. Yeah. You sort of like seen the full evolution of the company. So what do you think of this piece?
Yeah, I think
stand now.
I think they're one of the more fascinating brands to kind of follow the arc of, because I do remember when they launched quite well with two models, one under 1,000 and one, I forget what the price was, but like, so they launched at two different price categories, which it was sort of like, it's like a no for a brand. They're both luxury and sort of micro brand space, and they shared aesthetics between the two. It was just all very fascinating. And, I know there was a sort of I think a little bit of a slow buy-in period initially, and then around COVID times, like many other brands, they kind of took off. But like unlike other brands, they've had a different model how they do things. And I mean, I love that they put a lot of time and energy and effort into R&D. Like that's clearly like Ming's favorite thing to do. He has, I don't know if he's an engineering background. He's an interesting guy worth reading about. He worked in Hasselblad, he's worked in finance and stuff like that. But like, clearly he has an engineer's mind. I don't know if he's actually trained engineer. And he just, that's clearly like his obsession, right? It's developing new things, developing new technologies, pushing these manufacturing boundaries. They did the lightest watch. They've had all this interesting other kinds of lume development with ceramic lume, the sapphire. It's just like, it's all super cool. But for me though, I'm always like, is this the Ming for me to buy? Because I do at some point really want to own a Ming. I just have never, I've pulled the trigger for whatever reason. And this one is another one that was like on that fence for me. I think it's really cool. I like that stripped down, but still futuristic. It's still, it's very much a Ming. But one thing has actually sort of put me into the no camp for this one, which is that I've seen photographs of it from social media from people who have it, and the thing is a mirror. Yeah. It is like a gloss black dial and a sapphire, and their photos can be deceptive, especially because once again Ming is like this incredibly talented photographer, knows exactly how to light things, where there's absolutely no reflection on it, though there kind of is. There's like some interesting play with glare in his photos here, but yeah, in like a normal circumstance it's just kind of going to bounce right back at you, and I find that very annoying on a watch. So I don't think this is the one for me. I like the new business model here. I think the The Armory in Hong Kong is also selling them in store, which is also a change for them that they have a retail component. So I feel like we might see more of that in the future. The white tritium thing, though, I have a feeling, or white lume. They might be the only watch with like a white super, like a luminova like that, but there are white tritium tubes. And I don't think they're used very often because they're dull. But if you search, you can find tritium tubes in white that supposedly exist and are, available from different companies out there. So I don't know. You could start a debate there. But I mean, I'm sure they looked this up and it's like sort of a different thing. But I don't know. So yeah, that's my one comment about that, the lume factor.
I would definitely agree with you that on the glossiness of it, that was definitely a kind of initial impression I had of it when I saw it in person. Like, I remember thinking, like, my very first thought was like, this is sort of like a tuxedo watch. Like, it's so like, it's so kind of like shiny and black. It feels almost like a formal piece in a way. But yeah, I can see how that would be kind of like off-putting. I personally don't mind, a certain amount of gloss, on a watch dial, but yeah, that's something to be aware of for sure. Devin, do you have any thoughts on the 3702 or kind of like Ming's evolution in general?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this is an interesting watch release for other reasons other than the watch. That this is the one that they're planting their flag in to say this is a staple of our collection. I don't know. You could have played it safe. You could have gone with something a bit more traditional. You could have gone with a simpler design. But instead, in true Ming fashion, they were like, no, here's something that we're trying for the first time. Here's something that might be a little reflective and might be a little hard to read in certain lights. And this is the one that anyone can have whenever they want it. So I think that's a cool move. And I think that it states that Ming is here to stay. They're not just going to be one of these companies that pops up every once in a while with a limited edition and then runs away again. And I think, honestly, too, for a lot of people, this kind of put Ming back on their radar because the growing consensus in the community was, I like the watches, but I can't get them. Therefore, I hate them. And people get angry when the prices are doubled on the gray market and they can't get a hold of the watches that they really love. So hopefully this means that people who have been lusting after a Ming watch can finally get their hands on one without, breaking the bank to get it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think it's a pretty big deal that like this watch was, made available and shipping like on the day it launched. That's speaks to, Ming's changing ability to kind of like, manage the production of these things, over time. So yeah, kudos to them on the launch of the 3702. We'll obviously continue to cover Ming. I think that like, I agree with you, Zach, like they're one of the more interesting brands with one of the more interesting arcs, in our space, kind of working at like multiple, like the very, very high end and also like, the very consumer sort of driven end as well. Guys, we talked about a bunch of new releases and there's like still like many on our list, including some that we've already done hands-on reviews of and some that we'll have hands-on coverage of in the very near future. So I think this is a good place to stop it. But thanks so much for coming on and talking about a bountiful new release period. There's certainly a lot of watches to discuss this time of year.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in and listening. We really appreciate it, and we will be back next week with another episode of the Warner Well podcast. Until then, take care.